The market on Nexus Point was always busy. Traders from 100 different worlds came here to sell their goods. The air smelled like strange spices and engine fuel. Voices shouted in dozens of languages, making a noise that never stopped. Jake Morrison stood behind his small stall, arranging chunks of blue crystal on a worn cloth. These crystals came from the asteroid belt near Earth. They weren't worth much, but they were pretty. Some people bought them to make jewelry. Others just liked how they glowed in the dark. Jake was a human, which meant he was shorter than most of the other traders here. His brown hair was starting to show gray at the sides. His hands were rough from years of work. He wore simple clothes, a gray shirt and dark pants. Nothing fancy. He liked it that way. A tall alien with 4 arms walked past his stall without looking. Jake didn't mind. He'd been here for 6 months now, and he knew most people didn't care about human goods. Humans were new to this part of space. Nobody took them seriously yet. How much for the blue one? A voice asked. Jake looked up. A woman stood in front of his stall. She was Velthian, he could tell by her height and the purple tint to her skin. She was tall, maybe 6.5 feet. Her eyes were golden, and her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style. She wore plain clothes, not the fancy robes most Velthians liked. 5 credits, Jake said, pointing to the crystal she was looking at. She picked it up and held it to the light. The crystal glowed softly. It's beautiful. Where does it come from? Earth, Jake said. From the asteroid belt near my home planet? Earth, she repeated, as if testing the word. I've heard of it. A small world in the outer territories. That's right, Jake said with a smile. Small and mostly ignored. We like it that way? She laughed. It was a nice sound, warm and real. You don't sound bothered by being ignored. Why would I be? Jake asked. Being ignored means being left alone. That's peaceful. She studied him for a moment, her golden eyes curious. Then she handed him 5 credits. I'll take it. Jake wrapped the crystal in soft cloth and gave it to her. Thank you. Come back anytime. She nodded and walked away into the crowd. Jake thought that would be the end of it. But 3 days later she came back. The crystal you sold me, she said. It stopped glowing. Jake frowned. That shouldn't happen. Let me see it. She handed it to him. Jake held it up to the light and turned it slowly. And then he laughed. You left it in direct sunlight, didn't you? Yes, I put it on my window ledge. Why? These crystals charge in darkness and glow in light, Jake explained. If you leave them in the sun too long, they get tired. Just keep it in a dark drawer tonight, and it'll glow again tomorrow. She looked embarrassed. I didn't know. No reason you would, Jake said kindly. They're strange things. My fault for not explaining. She smiled at him. You're very patient. Most traders would have told me it was my problem. Well, I'm not most traders, Jake said. She bought another crystal that day, a green one this time. And she asked him questions about Earth. What was it like? What did humans eat? Why did they come to space so late compared to other species? Jake answered all her questions. He told her about Earth's blue oceans and green forests. He described human cities with their mix of old and new buildings. He explained that humans had been slow to reach space because they'd spent a lot of time fighting each other first. That's honest, she said. No point in lying, Jake replied. Everyone knows human history is messy. She came back the next week, and the week after that. Each time they talked longer. Jake learned that her name was Kalara. She was visiting Nexus Point for trade negotiations. She didn't say much about her work, and Jake didn't push. Everyone had their secrets. Kalara learned that Jake had been a miner before becoming a trader. He'd worked in the asteroid belt pulling rare minerals from floating rocks. It was dangerous work, but it paid well. He'd saved enough money to buy his own small ship and start trading. Don't you miss Earth? Kalara asked one day. Jake thought about it. Sometimes. I miss the rain. And real coffee. But space has its own beauty. What beauty? Kalara asked. All I see are empty stations and greedy traders. Jake pointed up at the sky visible through the station's dome. Look at that. 1 billion stars. Each one might have planets. Each planet might have life? We're so small compared to all that. It makes our problems seem smaller too. Kalara looked up. She was quiet for a long moment. I never thought of it that way. Most people don't, Jake said. They're too busy rushing around. Weeks passed. Kalara kept coming back to Jake's stall. Sometimes she bought things. Sometimes she just talked. Jake found himself looking forward to her visits. She was different from other Velthians he'd met. She listened more than she talked. She asked real questions, not just polite ones. One evening after the market closed, Kalara waited for Jake to pack up his stall. Would you like to have dinner? She asked. There's a quiet place near the East Docks. The food isn't bad. Jake hesitated. He'd been alone for a long time. He liked it that way. But Kalara's golden eyes were hopeful. Sure, he said. I'd like that. The restaurant was small and dim. They sat in a corner booth. Kalara ordered something with purple vegetables. Jake got noodles that tasted almost like the ones from Earth. They talked for hours. Kalara told him about growing up on a world where strength mattered more than anything else. She said she was tired of always having to prove herself. She wanted to be valued for her mind, not just her fighting skills. Jake told her about the beauty of working alone in space. How peaceful it was to float in silence between the stars. How he'd learned to appreciate small things like a good meal or a clear view. You're very different from what I expected, Kalara said. What did you expect? Jake asked. I don't know. Something louder? Humans are supposed to be aggressive, always pushing forward. Jake laughed. Some are, but not all of us. I did my pushing when I was younger. Now I just want peace. Peace, Kalara repeated. That sounds nice. From that night on, they met regularly. Sometimes at the restaurant. Sometimes in the station's gardens, where plants from a dozen worlds grew under artificial light. They never ran out of things to talk about. Jake realized he was falling in love. It surprised him. He thought he was too old and too tired for that. But Kalara made him feel young again. She made him want to share his days with someone. 2 months after they first met, Kalara came to his stall looking serious. I need to tell you something, she said. I haven't been completely honest with you. Jake's heart sank. Here it comes, he thought. She's leaving. Or she's married. Or she's not who she says she is. I'm listening, he said quietly. Kalara took a deep breath. My full name is Princess Kalara of the Velthian Empire. My father is Emperor Vorgith. I'm not just here for trade negotiations. I'm here representing the imperial family. Jake stared at her. Then he started laughing. Kalara looked hurt. Why are you laughing? Because, Jake said, wiping his eyes, I thought you were going to say something bad. But you're just royalty. That's not so terrible. You're not angry I didn't tell you? Why would I be angry? Jake asked. You wanted to be treated like a normal person. I understand that. I've been doing the same thing. What do you mean? Kalara asked. I mean, everyone here thinks I'm just a simple trader, Jake said. And I like it that way. We all have parts of ourselves we keep private. Kalara smiled, relief flooding her face. Then you don't care that I'm a princess? I care about you, Jake said simply. The rest is just details. 3 months later, in the station's gardens under the light of alien stars, Kalara asked Jake to marry her. According to Velthian custom, a princess could choose her own husband. She chose him. Jake said yes without hesitation. He knew it would be complicated. He knew her people might not accept him. But he also knew that some things were worth any difficulty. Love was one of those things. The imperial palace on Velthus Prime was nothing like Jake had imagined. It was massive, built from dark stone that seemed to absorb light. Towers rose into the purple sky. Guards stood everywhere, each one carrying weapons that could destroy a building. Jake stood in the entrance hall, feeling very small. His simple clothes looked wrong here. Everything around him was designed to show power and strength. The walls were covered in weapons from ancient battles. Statues of warrior kings lined the corridors. Even the air felt heavy with tradition. "This way, human," a servant said. His tone wasn't exactly rude, but it wasn't respectful either. Jake followed him through hallways that seemed to go on forever. They passed nobles in expensive robes who stopped talking when they saw him. Their eyes followed him with open curiosity and something else. Contempt, maybe. Or amusement. The servant left him in a large room. "Princess Kalara will arrive shortly," he said, then walked away. Jake sat on a chair that was too big for him. Everything here was built for Velthians, who were much taller than humans. His feet barely touched the floor. He felt like a child in an adult's world. The door opened. Kalara rushed in, and suddenly everything felt better. She wore formal robes now, covered in symbols of her rank. But her smile was the same. "Jake," she said, taking his hands. "I'm sorry I couldn't meet you when you arrived. There was a council meeting I couldn't miss." "It's okay," Jake said. "I'm just glad to see you." She kissed him softly. "Tonight there's a formal dinner. You'll meet my father and the rest of the court. I know it will be difficult, but please be patient with them." "I'll do my best," Jake promised. That evening, Jake learned what Kalara meant by difficult. The dining hall was enormous. Hundreds of Velthian nobles sat at long tables. They were all tall, strong, and confident. Many wore military decorations. This was a society of warriors, and they made sure everyone knew it. Jake sat beside Kalara at the high table. On her other side was her father, Emperor Vorgoth. He was massive, even for a Velthian, with gray in his hair and scars on his face. He looked at Jake the way someone might look at a strange insect. "So you're the human my daughter has chosen," the Emperor said. His voice was deep and cold. "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said. "I'm honored to be here." "Honored?" the Emperor repeated. He didn't sound like he believed it. Across the table sat a Velthian who looked younger than the Emperor, but just as fierce. His eyes were sharp and mean. "This is my cousin, Prince Korthan," Kalara said quietly. "He commands the Third Fleet." "Welcome to Velthus Prime, human," Korthan said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, what military rank did you hold on Earth?" "I wasn't military," Jake said. "I was a miner and then a trader." "A miner," Korthan said slowly. "How practical?" The way he said it made it sound like an insult. Other nobles at the table laughed quietly. Jake felt his face grow warm, but he kept his expression calm. "There's no shame in honest work," Kalara said sharply. "Of course not, cousin," Korthan said. "I'm sure mining is very important. Someone has to dig holes, after all." More laughter. Jake squeezed Kalara's hand under the table, telling her silently to let it go. Getting angry wouldn't help. The dinner continued. Nobles talked about battles and military strategy. They told stories of combat and victory. Jake said nothing, just listened and ate his food. Every time there was a pause in conversation, someone would make a comment about humans being weak or small or unimportant. "I heard humans can't even survive in most atmospheres without special equipment," one noble said. "And they only live about 80 years, another added. "Barely time to learn anything useful. They're not even strong enough to wear proper armor," a third said. "Their bones would break under the weight." Jake kept eating. He'd dealt with worse than words before. But it was hard, sitting there while people insulted his entire species. The only thing that kept him calm was Kalara's hand in his after dinner. Korthan approached them in the hallway. "Princess Kalara," he said formally. "Might I speak with you privately?" "Anything you say to me you can say in front of my husband," Kalara replied. Korthan's smile grew colder. "Very well. I wanted to discuss the military exercises next month. I assume you'll be leading the 2nd Division?" "Of course," Kalara said. "Excellent. And your husband, what will he do while you're gone?" "Jake will remain here, managing our household affairs," Kalara said. "Managing household affairs?" Korthan repeated. "How domestic." "Like a wife." Kalara's face went dark with anger. "You go too far, Korthan, do I?" Corthan asked. I'm simply trying to understand his role. He can't fight. He has no military experience. He knows nothing of our traditions. What exactly does he contribute to the Empire? He contributes his presence as my chosen partner, Kalara said. That should be enough for anyone. For you, perhaps, Corthan said. But others may wonder if our princess has made a foolish choice. A warrior like you deserves a warrior partner, not a... He looked at Jake with mock thoughtfulness. What are you exactly? Besides short? Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. He recognized the game Corthan was playing. The prince wanted him to get angry, to lash out, to prove he was the weak fool everyone thought he was. I'm a man who loves your cousin, Jake said calmly. That's all I need to be. How sweet, Corthan said. Love, perhaps that's enough on your primitive world. Here, we value strength. He walked away, laughing. Kalara was shaking with anger. I should challenge him to a duel for that insult. No, Jake said quietly. He's not worth it. And it would only make things worse. How can you stand there so calmly? Kalara demanded. He insulted you. He insulted us. He used words, Jake said. Words only hurt if you let them. But that wasn't entirely true. The words did hurt. They hurt more each day. The weeks that followed were worse. Kalara was often away on military business, leaving Jake alone in the palace. The servants forgot to bring him meals on time. Nobles ignored him in hallways. When he tried to attend council meetings, as was his right as a royal consort, guards told him the meetings were for military personnel only. He spent hours in the palace library, reading about Velthian history and culture. He learned their language better. He studied their laws and traditions. But no matter how much he learned, he was still just the human, the outsider. The weak one who didn't belong. One afternoon, Jake walked through the training grounds. He watched Velthian warriors practice with their weapons. They moved with deadly grace, their strength obvious in every motion. A few noticed him watching and sneered. Want to try, human? One called out. We'll go easy on you. His friends laughed. Jake shook his head and walked on. That evening, Kalara returned from her latest mission. She found Jake in their rooms, staring out the window at the city below. What's wrong? She asked, though she probably already knew. Nothing, Jake said. Don't lie to me, Kalara said gently. She sat beside him. I know they're making your life difficult. They think I'm weak, Jake said. They think you made a mistake choosing me. I didn't make a mistake, Kalara said fiercely. I know that, Jake said. And you know that. But they don't. And I can't prove them wrong without becoming something I don't want to be anymore. What do you mean? Kalara asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. There are parts of my past I haven't told you about. Not because I wanted to hide them, but because I wanted to leave them behind. What parts? Kalara asked. Later, Jake said. I'll tell you everything later. Right now, I just want to sit here with you. Kalara held him close. She could feel his tension, the weight he was carrying. She wanted to protect him, but she didn't know how. Her strength, her position, her power, none of it could shield him from the contempt of the court. A month later, the situation reached its breaking point. There was a formal feast celebrating a military victory. The great hall was full of nobles and officers. Kalara sat at the high table with her father. Jake was supposed to sit beside her, but when he approached his seat, Corthan was standing there. I'm sorry, human, Corthan said loudly, but this seat is reserved for warriors. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the servants' table. The hall went quiet. Everyone was watching. Waiting to see what would happen, Kalara started to rise, fury on her face. But Jake put a hand on her arm. It's fine, he said quietly. I'll sit somewhere else. No, Kalara said. That's your seat. You have every right. Please, Jake interrupted. His eyes met hers. Let it go. Kalara saw something in his expression, something tired and sad. She sat down slowly, her hands clenched into fists. Jake walked to a table in the back of the hall. He sat alone, eating in silence while the celebration continued around him. That night, Lying awake in their bed, Kalara whispered, "I don't know how to make this better." "You can't," Jake said. "This is something I have to handle myself." "How?" Kalara asked. "By letting them humiliate you." "For now," Jake said. "Sometimes the best way to win is to not fight at all." But even as he said it, he knew that time was running out. Eventually something would have to change. The question was what and how much it would cost him. The Festival of Victory came twice a year on Velthus Prime. It celebrated the Empire's military strength with parades, competitions, and feasts that lasted 3 days. The palace grounds filled with nobles from across the Empire. Security was still tight, but with thousands of guests coming and going, it was impossible to watch everyone. Kalara had to leave on the second day of the festival. A border dispute needed her immediate attention. She stood in their rooms, already dressed in her military uniform, looking torn. "I don't want to go," she said. "Not now. Something feels wrong." "Nothing's wrong," Jake assured her. "It's just a festival. I'll be fine." "Corthan has been too quiet lately," Kalara said. "He's planning something." "I know him." "Then the best thing you can do is handle this border issue quickly and come back," Jake said. He kissed her forehead. "I've survived worse than hostile nobles." Kalara didn't look convinced, but she had no choice. Her duty called. She left with her guards, looking back at Jake one last time before boarding her ship. That evening, Jake walked alone in the palace gardens. He'd always liked gardens, and these were beautiful despite their alien nature. Plants with silver leaves grew next to flowers that glowed in the darkness. Water ran through channels carved in dark stone. It was peaceful here, away from the noise of the festival. He carried a walking stick with him. It was simple, made of dark wood from earth. He'd had it for years, bought it at a market on a station somewhere. He liked the weight of it in his hand. It made him feel a little less alone. The garden path led to a quiet section far from the palace lights. The music from the festival was distant here. Jake could hear night insects making their strange sounds. He breathed deeply, enjoying the cool air. Then he felt it. That old feeling, the one he'd thought he'd left behind years ago. The sense of being watched. Of being hunted. Jake stopped walking. His grip on the walking stick changed slightly, became more ready. "You can come out," he said calmly. "No point hiding when we both know you're there." 6 figures stepped out of the shadows. They wore dark clothing that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were covered. They moved with the controlled grace of professional killers. "Jake Morrison," one of them said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "You've been judged unworthy by those who matter. Your death has been ordered." "Let me guess," Jake said. "Corthan sent you." The assassin didn't answer. They didn't need to. "Shadow Talons," Jake continued, recognizing their style now. "Elite killers. Someone paid a lot of money for this." "I'm almost flattered. Any last words?" The assassin asked. Jake sighed. He'd hoped it wouldn't come to this. He tried so hard to leave this part of himself behind. But some things once learned couldn't be unlearned. "Just one thing," Jake said. "You should have sent more people." The assassins attacked. They moved fast, faster than most beings could track. Plasma blades ignited in their hands, glowing with deadly heat. Neural disruptors hummed, ready to paralyze their target, but Jake moved faster, his walking stick twisted in his hand. With a soft click, it extended into a long, sleek blade. The weapon hummed with restrained power, its edge sharp enough to cut through almost anything. It was a katana, crafted by masters on Earth, given to him years ago for reasons he never talked about. The first assassin reached him, blade swinging for his neck. Jake's sword moved in a perfect arc, deflecting the strike. The motion was minimal, efficient. No wasted energy. The assassin stumbled past him, off balance. Jake's foot came up, catching the assassin in the chest. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to send him flying backward into a stone wall. The man hit with a crack and slid down. Unconscious, the second and third assassins attacked together, trying to overwhelm him. Their blades came from 2 directions at once. A killing move that should have been impossible to counter. Jake dropped low under both strikes. His sword flashed twice. Both assassins' weapons fell to the ground, cut cleanly from their hands. Before they could react, Jake's pommel struck one in the temple while his elbow caught the other in the throat. Both went down, gasping. The fourth assassin fired his neural disruptor. The shot should have paralyzed Jake instantly. Instead, Jake's blade moved with impossible speed, deflecting the energy blast. It bounced back at the shooter, who barely dodged in time. Jake closed the distance in 3 steps. The assassin tried to back away, but Jake was already inside his guard. A precise strike to the wrist disarmed him. A sweep of Jake's leg took him down. The assassin's head hit the stone path and he stopped moving. The fifth assassin hesitated. He'd watched 4 of his companions fall in less than 30 seconds. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were the best killers in known space. The human was supposed to be weak. "You can walk away," Jake said calmly. His breathing hadn't even changed. "Just leave now and this ends." The assassin's pride wouldn't let him. He charged, both weapons raised. Jake waited until the last possible moment, then sidestepped. His sword moved in a complex pattern, too fast to follow. The assassin's weapons clattered to the ground. He looked down at his hands in confusion, wondering how he'd lost his grip. Then Jake's fist caught him in the solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs. As he bent forward, Jake's knee came up, connecting with his chin. The assassin crumpled. The last assassin had been circling, looking for an opening. Now he understood there wasn't one. This human was something they hadn't prepared for. Something impossible. "I'm not getting paid enough for this," the assassin muttered. He turned to run. Jake's hand moved. The walking stick's handle, which had separated from the blade, flew through the air. It caught the fleeing assassin in the back of the legs, tripping him. He fell hard, and by the time he tried to get up, Jake was standing over him with the blade at his throat. "Stay down," Jake said quietly. "Please. I don't want to hurt you more than I already have." The assassin stayed down. The whole fight had taken less than 2 minutes. 6 of the deadliest killers in the Empire lay scattered across the garden path. None of them were dead, though several would have serious headaches when they woke up. Jake stood among them, his sword still humming softly. His hands were steady. His breathing was calm. He looked at the weapon in his hand with something like sadness. "I really didn't want to do this again," he said to no one in particular. Footsteps pounded on the stone path. Palace guards arrived, weapons drawn. They stopped short when they saw the scene-sick shadow talons on the ground. Jake Morrison standing over them, holding a blade that looked like it came from ancient Earth legends. The guard captain stepped forward slowly, his weapon lowered. "Lord Morrison? Are you?" "What happened here? They attacked me," Jake said simply. He touched a button on his sword and it collapsed back into a simple walking stick. "I defended myself." The captain looked at the unconscious assassins. Then at Jake, then back at the assassins. His face showed complete confusion. "You did this?" he asked. "All of them?" "Alone, yes," Jake said. He was already walking toward the palace. "They're all alive. Make sure they stay that way. Someone's going to want to question them." He left the captain and his guards standing there, trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. News spread through the palace like fire. The human consort, the weak merchant everyone had mocked, had just defeated 6 shadow talons without breaking a sweat. Not only defeated them, but left them all alive, showing a level of control that was somehow more frightening than killing would have been. Nobles, who had laughed at Jake, now whispered nervously in corners. Warriors who had dismissed him as weak now looked at him with new eyes. Fear, respect, and confusion mixed together. By the time Kalera's ship received the emergency message and turned around, the entire palace knew what had happened. The guards had found Corthan trying to flee. Under questioning, he'd confessed to hiring the assassins. He claimed Jake was corrupting the Empire with his weakness, that removing him was necessary. For Velthian Oda Kalara arrived at dawn. She ran through the palace corridors, not caring about protocol or dignity. She found Jake in their rooms, sitting by the window. His sword lay on the table beside him. Looking innocent and simple in the morning light, she stopped in the doorway, breathing hard. Jake turned to look at her. His eyes were tired. Are you hurt? She asked. No, Jake said. I'm fine. The guards told me what happened, Kalara said, coming closer. They said you fought 6 shadow talons, that you defeated them all without killing any of them. That's right, Jake said. Kalara looked at the sword on the table. She'd never seen it before. Where did that come from? It's always been with me, Jake said. Hidden in plain sight. Like Kalara sat down slowly. I don't understand. You're a traitor. A miner. You told me you had no military experience. I didn't lie, Jake said carefully. I was a traitor. I am a traitor. But before that he paused, choosing his words before that. I was something else, something I tried very hard to stop being. What were you? Kalara asked, though part of her was afraid of the answer. Jake looked out the window at the rising sun. Someone who was very good at fighting. Too good, good enough that I got tired of it. Tired of being a weapon. So I stopped. I put down my sword and picked up mining tools. I thought I could be someone different, but you're still that person, Kalara said, the fighter. He's still inside you. Yes, Jake admitted. I can't erase who I was. I can only choose not to be that person anymore. At least I could until last night, Jake sat on the floor of their private room, cleaning his sword with careful movements. The blade gleamed in the soft light. Each stroke of the cloth was precise, almost meditative. He'd done this thousands of times before. Muscle memory guided his hands. Kalara stood in the doorway, watching him. She'd seen warriors clean their weapons many times, but never like this. Jake moved with a reverence that spoke of deep respect for the blade. Or maybe respect for what it represented. How long have you had that sword? She asked quietly. Jake didn't look up. 12 years. It was a gift. From who? People I served with, Jake said. People who trusted me to protect them? Kalara came closer and sat on the floor across from him. Will you tell me the truth now? All of it? Jake finished cleaning the blade and set it carefully on a cloth. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. I wasn't lying when I told you I was a miner and a traitor, he began. That's what I became. But before that, I was Colonel Jake Morrison of Earth Special Operations Command. I served for 15 years in the Frontier Wars. The Frontier Wars? Kalara asked. She'd heard of them, vaguely. Some conflict at the edge of human space. Most species don't know much about them, Jake said. They happen far from here in a sector nobody cared about. Humans were new to space. We were exploring, trying to find our place. Then we ran into the Krell swarm. He paused, his jaw tight. The Krell are insect-like creatures. They don't talk. They don't negotiate. They just consume. They found a dozen human colonies and started killing everyone. We tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. So we fought. How many of you fought? Kalara asked. Not enough, Jake said. We were outnumbered 100 to 1. Maybe more. The Krell were bigger than us, stronger than us, armored naturally. In a straight fight, 1 Krell could kill 10 humans. So how did you win? Kalara asked. Jake smiled slightly, but there was no humor in it. We didn't fight straight. Humans learned a long time ago that we're not the biggest or the strongest. On Earth, there were animals that could kill us easily. So we got smart. We used tools. We used strategy. We learned to turn our weaknesses into advantages. He picked up his sword again, holding it gently. Earth has thousands of years of combat history. We've been fighting each other since before we had written language. We developed martial arts, ways of fighting that don't rely on strength, speed, precision, using an opponent's force against them. When we went to space, we brought all of that with us. And you were a soldier in these wars, Kalara said. I was a special operator, Jake corrected. We were sent on missions nobody else could do. Rescue operations, sabotage, assassination. We learned to move silent, strike fast, and disappear. We became very good at killing things that were bigger and stronger than us. Kalara tried to imagine the quiet man she loved doing the things he was describing. It seemed impossible, but she'd seen what he did to the Shadow Talons. Now it made sense. How many missions? She asked. I stopped counting after 50, Jake said. Each one was different. Each one left its mark. He touched a small scar on his arm. This was from a Krell warrior's claw. Almost lost the arm. This one, he pointed to a faint line on his neck, was from a plasma burn. Got too close to an explosion. You have many scars, Kalara observed. She'd noticed them before, but thought they were from mining accidents. Too many, Jake agreed. Each one has a story. Most of those stories aren't happy. Why did you stop? Kalara asked. If you were good at it, why leave? Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. There was a mission. We were supposed to destroy a Krell nest. Intelligence said it was a military target. We went in, set our charges, and got out. The nest exploded. He stopped, his hands gripping the sword tighter. It wasn't a military target. Intelligence was wrong. There were civilians inside. Krell civilians, if such a thing exists. Young ones. They were just trying to survive, like us. Kalara saw pain in his eyes, deep and old. I killed children, Jake said simply. Not on purpose. Not intentionally. But they died because of what I did. That's when I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be a weapon. I couldn't trust that the next target would be the right one. He set the sword down, so I resigned. I took my savings and bought mining equipment. I went as far from the war as I could get. I spent 5 years pulling rocks out of asteroids alone in space. It was peaceful, clean, no one died because of my choices. And then you became a trader, Kalara said. Yes, Jake said. I wanted to build things instead of destroying them. I wanted to connect people instead of killing them. I wanted to be someone different. Kalara understood now. She understood his patience with the nobles who mocked him. His refusal to fight back when insulted. He'd been trying to be someone who didn't solve problems with violence. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Because I wanted you to love Jake the traitor, he said. Not Jake the soldier. I wanted to be the person I chose to be, not the person I was forced to become. I love both, Kalara said firmly. The traitor and the soldier. Because they're both you. Jake looked at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. Even knowing what I've done? What I'm capable of. Especially knowing that, Kalara said. You had power and you chose to set it aside. That takes more strength than any warrior I know. Most Velthians would never give up their fighting skills. They'd think it made them weak. Maybe it does, Jake said. No, Kalara said. It makes you human. It makes you someone who learned from their mistakes and tried to be better. A knock at the door interrupted them. A guard stood outside, looking nervous. Lord Morrison, Princess Kalara. The Emperor requests your presence in the throne room. Prince Corthan's trial is about to begin. They looked at each other. This was it. The moment when everything would become public. The throne room was packed. Every noble who could fit had come to see what would happen. Corthan stood in chains before the Emperor's throne, his face defiant even in defeat. Emperor Vorgoth sat on his throne, looking older than usual. His daughter's husband had been attacked. His own nephew had ordered it. This was a mess that would take careful handling. Jake and Kalara entered together. The crowd went silent. Everyone stared at Jake, trying to reconcile the humble traitor with the warrior who had defeated 6 assassins. Jake Morrison, the Emperor said formally. You stand as the victim in this matter. What justice do you seek? Jake stepped forward. He'd thought about this question all night. According to Velthian law, Jake said, his voice carrying across the silent room, Prince Corthan has the right to trial by combat. Is that correct? Murmurs ran through the crowd. The Emperor nodded slowly. That is correct. As a high-ranking noble, he may invoke this right. Then I request that right be granted, Jake said. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Corthan's face showed surprise, then satisfaction. He thought Jake was giving him a way to win this. You would fight me? Corthan asked, his chains clinking as he moved. A trial to the death? According to your laws, you challenged me by sending assassins, Jake said. So yes, I accept your challenge. Kalara grabbed Jake's arm. You don't have to do this. There are other ways. No, Jake said quietly. There aren't. Not anymore. They need to see. See what? Kalara asked, though she thought she knew. See that humans aren't weak, Jake said. See that your choice wasn't foolish. See that mercy is stronger than cruelty. The Emperor stood. Very well. The trial by combat will take place in 3 days' time. In the Grand Arena, Prince Corthan, you will be released from chains to prepare. Jake Morrison, you may choose any weapons and armor you wish. I only need my sword, Jake said, the crowd whispered again. Corthan would be wearing full battle armor and carrying weapons designed to kill large creatures. Jake was choosing to fight with a single blade and whatever armor he could wear. Either he was incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Time would tell which. That night, Jake stood in an empty training room. He moved through forms he hadn't practiced in years. His body remembered even if his mind had tried to forget. Each movement flowed into the next. Strike, parry, counter, retreat. The sword sang through the air. He tried to leave this behind. He tried to be someone else. But maybe this was who he'd always been. Maybe you couldn't really change, only choose when and how to use what you were. The door opened. An old Velthian warrior stood there, watching. He was covered in scars, his hair white with age. I've been fighting for 60 years, the old warrior said. I've never seen anyone move like that. It's not Velthian style, Jake said, not stopping his practice. No, the old warrior agreed. It's something older. Something that remembers when being weak meant learning to fight smarter. Jake finished his form and lowered his sword. Did you come here to watch or to say something? I came to tell you that not everyone thinks you're weak, the old warrior said. Some of us have always known that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about choosing when to hit at all. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you win. This court needs someone to remind them that warriors should protect, not just destroy. He left Jake alone with his thoughts and his sword, preparing for a fight he'd never wanted but could no longer avoid. The Grand Arena had stood for 1,000 years. Its stone walls had seen countless battles, duels, and executions. Today it was packed with more people than it had held in decades. Every seat was filled. Nobles, warriors, servants, merchants all came to see the impossible match. Jake Morrison, the human merchant against Prince Corthan, one of the Empire's greatest warriors. Jake stood in the preparation room beneath the arena. He could hear the crowd above, their voices like distant thunder. He wore simple combat clothes, light armor that wouldn't slow him down. His sword rested in its sheath at his side. Kalara stood with him, her face tight with worry. You can still stop this, she said. My father would understand. No, he wouldn't, Jake said calmly. And neither would anyone else. This has to happen. You could die, Kalara said. I've almost died before, Jake replied. Many times. I'm still here. Corthan is one of our best fighters, Kalara insisted. He's killed hundreds in battle. He's 7 feet tall and 3 times your strength. Jake smiled slightly. I know, I've been counting his advantages. There are quite a few. Then how can you be so calm? Kalara demanded. Jake turned to face her fully. Because I've fought things bigger and meaner than Corthan. I've survived situations where I shouldn't have. Not because I'm stronger, but because I think differently. Corthan sees combat as a test of power. I see it as a problem to solve. He touched her face gently. I'm going to win this. Not because I'm a better warrior, but because I have more reasons to live. He wants to prove he's strong. I want to come home to you. Kalara kissed him hard. You better keep that promise. A guard knocked on the door. It's time. Jake walked into the tunnel leading to the arena. The roar of the crowd grew louder with each step. Light appeared ahead, bright and harsh. He stepped out into the arena, and the crowd exploded in sound. The arena floor was sand and stone. It stretched 50 meters across, surrounded by walls too high to climb. On the opposite side, another tunnel opened. Corthan emerged, The prince wore full battle armor, black metal plates that covered him from neck to feet. He carried a power halberd, a weapon designed to cut through tank armor. Its blade glowed with contained energy. He looked like death itself, massive and unstoppable. Corthan saw Jake and laughed. The sound echoed across the arena. "That's what you're wearing," Corthan called out. "And that tiny sword?" "Human, I'll cut you in half before you get close to me." Jake didn't respond. He walked to the center of the arena, his movements calm and measured. He looked small compared to Corthan, like a child facing an adult. Emperor Vorgoth stood in the royal box, his voice amplified by technology. "This trial by combat will determine the guilt or innocence of Prince Corthan in the attempted murder of Jake Morrison. The fight continues until one combatant yields or dies." "There are no other rules, begin?" Corthan charged immediately. His speed was terrifying for someone so large. The arena floor shook with his steps. He raised his halberd high, aiming to split Jake down the middle with one strike. Jake didn't move until the last possible moment. Then he flowed to the side, smooth as water. The halberd crashed into the ground where he'd been standing, sending up a spray of sand and stone chips. Corthan spun, swinging the halberd in a wide arc. Jake ducked under it, rolled, and came up 5 meters away. He still hadn't drawn his sword. "Stand still and fight," Corthan roared. Jake said nothing. He watched, analyzed, learned. Corthan was strong and fast, but he fought like most Velthians. He relied on power and aggression. He expected opponents to meet his attacks with their own strength. Corthan charged again. This time Jake moved toward him instead of away. At the last second, he dropped and slid under Corthan's swing. His hand touched the ground, pushing off, and he was behind the prince. Still, Jake didn't attack. He was making Corthan chase him, tire him out, make him angry. "Coward!" Corthan shouted. "You run like prey?" The crowd was mixed in their reactions. Some jeered at Jake for not fighting. Others watched carefully, starting to understand what he was doing. Corthan swung again and again. Each time Jake wasn't there. The prince's breathing grew heavier. His movements became slightly less precise. The heavy armor and heavier weapon were taking their toll. "I'm going to enjoy killing you," Corthan growled. "You're going to have to hit me first," Jake said, quiet like Corthan exploded in rage. He activated his armor's power boost, doubling his speed temporarily. The next swing came impossibly fast. Jake finally drew his sword. The blade met the halberd in a shower of sparks. But Jake didn't try to match Corthan's strength. Instead, he deflected the blow at an angle, letting the force slide past him. The halberd smashed into the ground again. Jake's sword flashed 3 times. 3 precise strikes against Corthan's armor. The armor held, but now it had scratches in it. Weak points. Corthan's eyes widened. The human had just marked him. Those scratches showed where the armor could be penetrated. "You think you're clever," Corthan said. "But you're still just meat and bone. 1 hit from me and you're dead, then you should probably try to hit me," Jake said. They circled each other now. The crowd had gone quieter, leaning forward to watch every movement. Corthan attacked again, but more carefully this time. He was starting to respect Jake's speed. The halberd came in controlled strikes, trying to corner Jake against the arena wall. Jake defended with minimal movements. Each time Corthan's blade came close, Jake's sword was there to deflect it. Sparks flew with every impact. The sound of metal on metal rang across the arena. Kor then tried to feint, pretending to strike high, then going low. Jake read it instantly and jumped over the sweep. While in the air, his sword struck down at one of the marked spots on Corthan's armor. The armor cracked. Not much, but enough. Corthan felt the blade touch his shoulder through the gap. A thin line of blood appeared. The crowd gasped. The prince had been wounded. Corthan's face twisted in rage and something else, fear. He was starting to realize he might actually lose this. "I'm going to rip you apart," Corthan screamed. He dropped all technique and just attacked wildly, the halberd swinging in brutal arcs. Jake's face remained calm. This was what he'd been waiting for. An opponent who'd lost control. He moved between the strikes like he was dancing. His sword found another weak point, then another. Small cuts appeared on Corthan's arms and legs. None were serious, but they were multiplying. Corthan's armor began sparking where Jake's sword had damaged it. The prince was bleeding from a dozen small wounds. His breathing was ragged. The power boost had worn off, leaving him exhausted. Jake could have finished it then. He saw openings where he could have driven his blade through Corthan's armor into vital areas. But he didn't take them. Yield, Jake said. This doesn't have to end with your death never, Corthan shouted. He raised his halberd for one final, desperate strike. Jake moved. His sword sliced through the halberd's shaft, cutting it in two. The blade portion fell to the sand uselessly. Corthan stood there holding the handle of a broken weapon. Before Corthan could react, Jake was behind him. His sword pressed against the back of Corthan's neck, right at the gap between helmet and armor. Yield, Jake repeated. Please. The arena was completely silent. Corthan stood frozen. One movement from Jake and the prince would die. Everyone knew it. Corthan's shoulders slumped. I yield, he said quietly. Jake lowered his sword immediately. He stepped back, giving Corthan space. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted in confusion. Some just sat in stunned silence. Jake walked to the center of the arena. His voice carried clearly in the sudden quiet. I didn't come to Velthus Prime to prove I could kill your warriors, he said, speaking to everyone. I came because I love Kalara. I retired from fighting because I was tired of death. But I haven't forgotten how to fight. None of us should forget. The question is, when we choose to use that ability. He looked at Corthan, who was being helped to his feet by arena medics. Prince Corthan, you said I was weak because I wouldn't fight? But choosing not to fight when you could is harder than choosing to fight. Any fool can solve problems with violence. It takes wisdom to solve them. Without it, Jake turned to face the royal box where Emperor Vorgoth sat. Your Majesty, according to your laws, I've won this trial. Corthan's guilt is proven. But I ask for mercy. Exile him if you must, but let him live. Show that the Velthian Empire is strong enough to spare a defeated enemy. The Emperor stood. He looked at Jake for a long moment. Jake Morrison, the Emperor said, you've shown more wisdom in these few minutes than many of my advisors show in years. Corthan will be exiled for his crimes, but he will live. And you, the Emperor paused. You have my respect. You have earned your place in this court. The crowd cheered then, loudly and long. Not everyone was happy, but most understood what they'd witnessed. The human had proven himself in the most Velthian way possible, through combat. But he'd also shown them something they'd forgotten. That true strength included mercy. Jake sheathed his sword and walked toward the tunnel where Kalara waited. She ran to him, not caring about dignity or protocol. She threw her arms around him, and he held her close. I told you I'd come home, he said softly. You did, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. You actually did. 3 months passed. The court changed slowly but steadily. Jake began teaching a small group of young warriors who wanted to learn human fighting techniques. He didn't teach them just the physical movements, but the philosophy behind the